This is the first electric Mercedes SUV, the EQS SUV. 285 miles of range, seating up to 7, and S-Class luxury, and S-Class price tags. This one is more than $125,000. Now it's aimed squarely at the Tesla Model X, the BMW iX, and the Rivian R1S. This is a mid-size SUV, kind of on the larger side, and right now there aren't too many other EVs like it in the space. And Mercedes is hoping that that is going to be a big reason why you'll buy one. Here's your big reason to sell with CarGurus. Type in a few details, get a cash offer from dealers nationwide. If you like the price, they'll pick up your car and pay you. Here's a taste of alphabet soup. EQ is the new prefix for any Mercedes-Benz with a battery electric powertrain. The letter S means this EQ is at the top of the model hierarchy, just like the S-Class, the company's flagship sedan. That's how Mercedes names its gas SUVs, like the GLS. The EQS SUV is based off the sedan, and it's called an SUV. I wouldn't call this an SUV. To me, it looks more like a minivan, like the old R-Class, and that car was a flop. The front hood, how it slopes, it's kind of this droopy profile, and in all white, kind of looks like an egg. That's not really flattering, but regardless, this is the new front end for Mercedes EQ. You get an all black solid grille with all these miniature Mercedes stars scattered throughout, hides all the sensors really nicely, but they're flanked between these two very streamlined headlights. To me, yeah, they're nice. Kind of looks like the Mercedes Metris commercial van. And to be honest, even though this has 21-inch wheels, this is the top spec EQS 580, it really looks like there should be a sliding door back there. But these doors are pretty special. All 4 doors will automatically power open and close. That's what's supposed to happen. Right now you can't order it on an EQS SUV because of the chip shortage, but you do get these flush door handles that pop out. And this optional running board, it just kind of knocks against your ankle all the time. I wouldn't order it like that. The only other thing that's kind of cool here is this. It's not really a door. It's a flap for the windshield washer fluid because you're not allowed to open this hood. Only a Mercedes technician can do that, so I guess that's a really good feature for the dealer. On the EQS, the wheels are stretched to the furthest corners of the vehicle for the most space inside, but that doesn't really translate into a very gorgeous outside, in my opinion. But everything I don't like is here for maximum aerodynamics, which in turn improves efficiency. That's what Mercedes was really going for here, even though as a whole, I'm not in love with it. So, exactly how big is the EQS? Well, compared to the GLS, the whole wheelbase is 3 inches longer. Overall length, 3 inches shorter. It's the same width, but the height, 4 inches shorter. But the S in EQS stands for small cargo space. Now outside, despite being the same size as a GLS, roughly, well inside, it's actually tighter than a GLE. Go figure that. Look at the numbers. It's small by Mercedes standards, but it's also small next to other SUVs. A Honda CR-V or a Nissan Rogue have more space inside than this car. Part of it is due to this really high parcel shelf. You can put stuff under here, but there's no spare tire. There's several inches worth of space here, so that floor is higher. There's also the 4-wheel steering, which is why this cutout here has to be much narrower. So there's some compromises despite all the technology underneath. You're supposed to be able to seat 7 with an optional 3rd row. How is that possible? The outside is kind of ugly. The inside is worthy of a spaceship. This is the Hyperscreen, 56 inches of glass spanning the dash with 3 separate screens. 2 12.3-inch displays for driver and passenger, and a 17.7-inch display they can share. The EQS 450 gets a totally different dash. 1 12.3-inch display for the driver and a 12.8-inch portrait touchscreen. This is how it looks in the EQE, which is otherwise identical in layout to the EQS. This is absolutely overkill in the best Mercedes fashion. When you start the car, the display says, "Don't let me distract you." With all of these animations and bright colors and things going everywhere, what am I supposed to look at? The road? Now I'm in the passenger seat, and someone has to be seated here in order to use it. There's weight sensors here, supposed to reduce the distraction for the guy over there driving. I don't really know if that works or not, but This person has control of almost everything from vehicle settings to navigation. I can play Apple Music on a separate account from what this screen is using. So there's two different user profiles going on here, and it's pretty full featured. There's basically a lot of things to play with, so you can never be bored. The central display has two different display modes. The first is this one. I like it. It's got a nice, clean, simplified map. All of these icons underneath for all the menu options. Those stay there at all times. If you press and hold the home icon, you switch it to this. It's called Zero Layer, and it always keeps the map all over the screen, constantly. So if you actually want to go back, well, you can't see everything. You have to go here and see all the icons as an overlay. Now there's bats all over the place because it's Halloween. Mercedes is being unusually cheeky and funny these days. I don't understand that. Kind of like it though. There's leaves over here as well. But these icons down here change based on what the system thinks you want next, what you use most. I don't really prefer that, but it's easy to switch back and forth. All the menus are really simple. Mercedes has simplified this by a lot. It used to be very confusing, but now everything is available here at a glance. And if you tap the vehicle, you can get shortcuts and just view everything from the outside in. Check it out. And if you do get confused, there's plenty of help along the way. Mercedes takes some of the mystery out of EV charging. If you go in here, it'll tell you the maximum input it'll accept from a DC fast charger. So just because the station says you can do 350, doesn't mean the car currently can. Here's the battery charge state, and here you'll see the actual maximum input. It says 77 kilowatt. Now this car can go up to 200, but that's only under certain conditions. Say when the battery is down here, below 50%. The battery also has to be at a certain temperature. You can see that right here. It'll explain everything to you. It'll explain more how it charges, including depending on what's in your navigation. What I like about this is that despite all this text, you don't have to read the owner's manual. It's also much easier to search for charging stations compared to other EVs. Super simple. Press that on the map. Now I have the options here. It even shows me how many there are. And then I can actually start the charge from inside the car. So all you have to do is tap one of these. And then you go outside, plug it in. You don't have to use a card. This works at EVgo, at ChargePoint, and Electrify America. Mercedes does offer some free charging for a while, but you do have to have a credit card on your Mercedes Me account. If someone taps your car while you're in the store, well, guess what? The 360 cameras will find them. Oh, look, another Mercedes hit this Mercedes. This was actually while it was being shipped, so nothing actually happened, but the car records these photos and you can upload them. You can set the cameras to automatically activate when you hit a certain location. If you press this button while the camera is there, it saves the GPS, and every time you come back here, you'll see this exact same view. It'll also do the same thing by raising the air suspension at exactly the same time you want it. In case you want some fake sounds, Mercedes got them for you. And it's kind of annoying, but the thing that is not gimmicky is the ambient lighting. I love it, even on the seats. There are so many ways to customize this that really no other car maker has gone quite to this level. I couldn't even count how many colors there are, and they all animate, they all change based on, say, if there's a blind spot warning, based if you're changing the temperature, even if the car is charging. This car talks to you through light. Audiophiles will really like this. There's a Burmester system. You can adjust all the surround profiles yourself, but this one will customize it for you. You can change the volume of treble and bass. So if I want to hear more, you can see what's going on here. I can increase that, lower it, and I can go all around here once this loads. It's just pretty neat. You can adjust this all manually yourself, but the car does a really good job of doing it for you. And of course, there is every kind of driver assistance system available. It's actually standard on the EQS. And you get everything from active steering, active lane keeping, all of that stuff. Now, when the passenger is gone, there's several different screensaver options you can have, from a little clock to a compass to different pictures of Mercedes you wish that you bought, but aren't even in production. There's a lot of different dashboard formats you could have here, from understated, which puts purple clocks on there. Say you want a UFO, it shows you that in the center here in sport mode. You can show regular gauges, full screen maps, full lane markings with other cars, and off-road mode. Don't think you really want to do that with this car. And finally, your tire pressure. The screens and all the software inside, including the semi-automated driving, they're amazing, no doubt about that. But some of the hardware, like here and the plastic and the leather, doesn't really feel that good. And here's another thing, there's 8 USB-C ports around this entire vehicle, but not one electrical outlet in an electric car. The back of the EQS is a nice place to sit. You got a lot of headroom, a lot of legroom. This one has the executive package, so you get these little pillows here. I have power seats, I can recline separately on each bench here, heated seats, 4-zone climate, a tablet to control even more things and more screens. But I gotta say, as nice and roomy as this is, I like this pillow, still not the same quality and atmosphere as an S-Class. There's a lot of power, 536 horsepower and 633 pound-feet. There's 2 electric motors and a 108 kilowatt-hour battery. That's pretty large. Mercedes estimates 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. I definitely would agree. At almost any speed, this car picks up. But despite those numbers, it's actually not as quick as I thought it might be. And then I looked at the curb weight. It's over 6,200 pounds. That is heavier than a Chevy Suburban, all because of the batteries. So as good as Mercedes-Benz is, as excellent as they are with engineering, they can't overcome the weight of these lithium-ion batteries. So all we got are very, very heavy EVs right now. I think the 580 is where everybody should start in terms of performance. The problem is, because of this weight, if you get the EQS 450 Plus, well, you're only getting 355 horsepower. Even if you get 4MATIC, it's the same amount of power, a lot more torque, very similar to what you'll get in the 580. You can check out those numbers. But really, to me, this is where you have to start and end. With this much weight on board, absolutely. Now, as you'd expect in any EV, it's really smooth, it's quiet. There's no gear, so you just keep moving very effortlessly. I love it. It doesn't particularly drive any differently, though. But the braking is a lot different. I'll explain that. There's 4 modes to the regen brakes. They're activated here with the paddle shifters. So if I go down, I go to normal, then it's strong. That will basically bring this EQS to a full stop. If I paddle upward, now it reduces the regen. And there's a 4th mode called intelligent recuperation. Now what this does is that it uses the adaptive cruise control sensors similar to other EVs that will try to pace your speed. But Mercedes goes a bit further. So what this will do, it will actually bring the car to a stop at intersections. Not every intersection, doesn't always work. And it will also slow down. Say if I'm going to put on my turn signal, at the turn ahead, the car will actually begin braking because it knows on the map, well, that you might be turning. What it does though, is it actually shifts the brake pedal itself. It moves it. So as the car is slowing down, however it decides to slow down, when you actually put your foot on the pedal, it's not where you think it should be. It's actually moving underneath your foot. That I have never seen in any other EV, and it's pretty disconcerting. So as good as regen systems are, when you actually need to stop, I don't get the same confidence when I'm really pushing down. I feel like I have to really put my foot down before the pads bite the rotors. And in other driving situations, I've found that pedal to feel very hard, almost like a block of wood is between the pedal and the floor. The feedback is just not good. It's some of the worst brakes I've experienced on a new car in some time, especially a Mercedes. I expect Mercedes to get that right. The steering is pretty much aloof. It doesn't really want you to steer. It's kind of disconnected. But make no mistake, because as luxurious as this car is, it will still grip, it'll still handle. The limits aren't all that high. These are 275mm width tires, so they should be, but this car is meant for touring. It is really not meant for back road carving. The four-wheel steering, the wheels turn in tandem at higher speeds, so it definitely does sharpen the response, but you don't get much road feel from here. You're not gonna get that in this car. It's not meant to do that. Really, the way I see it, the EQS is set up for automated driving. Mercedes has a new system called Drive Pilot, which is going to introduce in the United States in 2023. It's still subject to federal approval. They're not sure if they can bring it here, but when it does, it's going to go in these cars. And the way these controls feel, everything from the throttle to the brakes to the steering, it really is a preview for that system. So as much as I don't love a lot of the dynamics in this car, well, if you just sit back and let the computer do it, you'll be fine. Now this is a nice quiet car. Air springs come standard, that's airmatic, they're self-leveling. There is an off-road mode available here that will raise the suspension a little bit. I wouldn't recommend using it. And there's a few driving modes on here. To be honest, sport doesn't really make that much of a difference. Put it in there. I mean, that's good, right? It moves, as it should, with 536 horsepower and over 600 pound-feet of torque. But really, this car belongs in comfort. The EPA rates the EQS 450 at 305 miles. That's with the rear-wheel drive model. If you get the 450 4MATIC or the 580 4MATIC, you get 285 miles. Now in my testing, I've really only seen about 250. That would be my estimate. When I plugged the car in, had a full charge, it said 334, and it wasn't even close to that. Charging speeds is pretty decent. This will accept up to 200 kilowatts of DC fast charging. And there's some really intelligent stuff in here, and I will show you that later. The 2023 EQS SUV starts at $104,400, but that's with nothing in it. And it's slow. Get the 4MATIC for $3 grand more. But the one you really want is this trim, the EQS 580, which starts at $125,950. Mercedes didn't price my car's options since it's too new, but I'm estimating about $140,000 and it's not fully loaded. That's as much as a Tesla Model X Plaid, which is way cooler looking and incredibly fast. The BMW iX is even uglier at the same price. The Rivian is really attractive and much cheaper, but try buying one. The fact is, the EQS doesn't feel like a flagship, not outside and not inside, and it's not large enough inside to feel like an electric GLS. It's way more cramped behind the second row, and that's the opposite of what a larger SUV should deliver. I'm disappointed by the EQS SUV. I expected a knockout performance from Mercedes-Benz, and what I've got here in terms of range, acceleration, charging times, and the whole driving experience is only average. The cargo hold is too small for a vehicle this large, and the interior doesn't feel as grand as it should be, especially at this price. This is a ton of money. There are really great parts, the infotainment, all the technology. No one is doing in-car software like Mercedes-Benz. It's really stunning. That is what really is going to sell this car. But to me, it's no longer feeling like a car. What do you think? We have a lot more EV reviews, comparison tests, and everything else coming up here on the YouTube channel. So subscribe, watch and read more reviews at CarGurus.com. We'll see you next time.